Hi everyone, this is Josipa Petrunic, the Executive Director and CEO of the Canadian Urban Transit Research and Innovation Consortium. Welcome to the webinar today. Today we'll be discussing post-CUTRIC National Research and Innovation Forum Next Steps for Financing. This webinar will be in particular interesting to those of you who attended our National Research and Innovation Forum in Ottawa on June 29th, and so you'll be able to gain a sense of the next steps associated with financing for projects, specifically those projects located in Ontario. To take you all through now, just as a reminder, the pre-form process and timeline. Many of you recall that you will have submitted a notification of intent on June 10th, and with that notification of intent, you will have been invited as of June 15th to attend our National Research and Innovation Forum. That forum occurred on June 29th in Ottawa, and since that time, our team has been working with several stakeholders to link up academic teams to industry stakeholders so that some of the projects that were presented could actually be combined going forward. What we're going to discuss today now is the PostWarm revised timeline. So a couple things to keep in mind. Originally, CUTRIC had hoped to be launching its full application for financing this summer as of August, but there is a slight delay, and that's simply a matter associated with the due diligence process with the Ministry of Economic Development and Growth in Ontario. So CUTRIC has asked the Ministry to do something rather unique, and that is to fund a third-party independent organization, namely ourselves, as an innovation group that can disseminate rather quickly, nimbly, and rapidly financing for R&D projects. But the result is, of course, that the ministry does have to go through a fairly thorough due diligence process, and we're supporting them in that. The result of that is that the transfer payment agreement for CUTRIC is not actually available as of right now, and that means that we are still waiting to actually receive the full $10 million that was committed to CUTRIC and CUTRIC innovation projects in the 2016 provincial budget. So this legal matter means that our board is not in a position to legally commit financing to projects this month. And therefore we simply have to wait for the legal process to play itself out. Therefore, we are facing a slight delay in terms of when our first round of calls for full financing will be launched. The goal is to launch that first call as soon as possible, and that would mean, in my view, August. So we are still working on the basis that by August we will be able to launch that full call. And that call will involve inviting those stakeholders who submitted a notification of intent back in June to now submit a full application for financing. Before stakeholders are invited to apply fully, however, as we'll discuss in a moment, we do have to revise several aspects of many of your NOIs, so there is a bit of a hand-holding and development process that has to take place first. The second item, and this is not so much a delay item as it is an update item for those of you who are not yet members of CUTRIC, is that CUTRIC is currently expanding its scientific and technical committee. The STC is the group of individuals who will be asked to serve as the first round of reviewers for CUTRIC projects once a team has gotten together and submitted a full financing application. That STC is composed of experts who relate to the 5 pillar areas that CUTRIC works in. So alternative propulsion, lightweight materials, data analytics, cybersecurity for transportation systems, and big data and analytics for network optimization. Those are the areas that CUTRIC works in. Those are the 5 pillars. And we've sought out experts from our paid membership base who can review applications in those 5 areas. However, on August 10th, I will be recommending to the board a policy that's already been discussed widely both in the executive committee level and in the membership of CUTRIC itself. And this is the goal of achieving gender parity, a goal that the organization has had for some time. And that means that not only at the governing level of the board, but also at the scientific and technical committee level, we will be aiming to obtain and achieve gender parity by the end of this year. And that means we will be asking our industry members to offer up to 4 nominees, of which at least 2 are women, and our university and college members to offer up at least 2 nominees, of which at least 1 is a woman, is experts for the STC. Now, we may come back to our membership base, whether you're a university or private sector or public sector company, and we may say, given the kinds of applications we're getting, we actually need a couple more reviewers in a certain number of select areas. And so that is a discretionary basis where I will be reaching out to our membership base asking for some of our members to offer up additional nominees if we find that there are projects where we need additional reviewers as we go forward. But the base of the STC is in formulation now, and on August 10th, CUTRIC will be holding its next board meeting to confirm the expansion to achieve gender parity. The next item to highlight here is the pay-to-play model, and this is a reminder to folks that CUTRIC does operate on a pay-to-play model. So if you attended the National R&I Forum, you will have been introduced to CUTRIC at some point by myself, by one of our staff members, or by a presentation you will have attended, and therefore you will have heard that CUTRIC operates on a pay-to-play model, which means you pay a membership fee to be able to play in the community of stakeholders that has access to financing. And those membership fees, of course, cover CUTRIC's operations. It's how we ensure that the money we receive from government goes primarily to projects and not to operational overheads. And it also demonstrates investment in the industry, in the effort, in the initiative to build an ecosystem by our industry stakeholders and our academic stakeholders. What we will be doing now is on August 10th tightening up the membership rules, and that's because we're coming out of our first year of startup growth, and we are now in a position where companies and academic organizations are knocking on our door to join. So we're no longer in the position of a startup organization seeking out founding members, and therefore we will be approving a tightening up those membership rules. That means that full applications now will require that all project stakeholders are members of CUTRIC. We're still going to hold to the principle that to submit a notification of intent, you do not need all project stakeholders to be CUTRIC members. And that's because NOIs help us understand where the industry is developing, how the ecosystem is growing, and where we need to target efforts. So it's beneficial to us to receive more NOIs than projects that we ultimately fund, mostly for research purposes and understanding where the industry is going. But the development of full application does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of human hours and labor hours, and that has to be covered by somebody. Somebody has to pay those bills, and those bills are paid by our membership base. And therefore, there is a focus on making sure that everybody who submits or is part of the full submission to an application for financing in CUTRIC is also a paid member of the organization. Therefore, to take you through the revised membership policy, for those of you who joined CUTRIC before August 10th or will have joined before August 10th, you fall into the founding membership practices, which have held since February 2015 when we really officially started up. And those practices held that, again, CUTRIC operated on a pay-to-play model, and therefore membership fees are required to prior to the financing of any given project. The interpretation up until August 10th is that stakeholders are not required to be members to submit NOIs, and that stakeholders are not required to be members for full financing applications, but that stakeholders are required to become members once the STC reviews and approves financing. Now, having said that, this was the interpretation that held back when we thought we would be able to launch our first round of financing in June or July of this year. Now that we're facing a slight delay due to the very appropriate due diligence process that the government's going through, this last bullet point doesn't really hold because it's not going to be possible to apply for full financing before August 10th in any case. And the old membership practices did hold that founding members who joined at any point between February 2015 and August 10th were offered a waiver for the first project year of membership. And that meant if your project starts next year, if you apply to CUTRIC financing this year, you gain that financing, you apply to NSERC, you gain that financing, and therefore your project starts on January 1st, 2017, then if you join during the founding membership period, your membership fee for 2017 is waived. And that was a benefit to those organizations, both public and private, that joined CUTRIC before CUTRIC actually had financing to offer. So it is an exchange in value for those organizations that sought to help the organization grow at a time when it didn't have financing. Now that we're past that early period and that founding membership period, we're into the new membership policy, and this has been recommended to the board, and it will be set on the agenda for approval on August 10th. And this holds, again, we operate with the pay-to-play model. The interpretation holds that we don't need you to be a member to sign a notification of intent or submit a notification of intent, but you do now need to be a member before you are invited to apply for full financing. And that therefore holds that you are required to be a member before the STC reviews your application, let alone approves it for financing. And also the waiver for the first project year disappears. So after August 10th, if you sign up on or after August 10th as a member of CUTRIC, you're no longer offered a waiver for the first project year. And that makes sense. As CUTRIC grows operationally, the return on investment needs to become evident both to CUTRIC in terms of its engagements with companies and its business development work, as well as to the companies themselves. And so now we're getting into a period where we are more stably growing. We're no longer a small startup organization, and that merits a change in the membership policy. So that is important to highlight now, because some of you represent companies that will not have an interest in joining CUTRIC, and that is okay. But it also means that you exclude yourself from the financing that CUTRIC has access to. So that pay-to-play model is a particular kind of innovation, and it is one that we think is going to certainly benefit collaborative RD&D, and it is, of course, one that ultimately saves government money in terms of overhead financing for these kinds of programs. In terms of the PostWarm revised timeline, therefore, given all of these circumstances, what are the next steps? First off, if you're not a member, you need to become one. Most academic groups right now that are active in the 5 pillar areas that we've looked at are members or are in the process of joining as members. Our most recent member is the University of Ottawa, and we welcome them. We're now working with Carleton University, Ryerson University, and several other organizations. So academia is coming to the table, and that's not been a struggle at all. Now, in terms of corporate membership, it is important that industries take a look at the level of project investment that they're seeking. If you are a large corporation, then you need to really do an assessment, of course, on the return on investment for joining CUTRIC. The highest membership tier is quite strenuous. It is $30,000 a year. So we have companies like Nova Bus and Thales that are paid up members that have joined at that membership fee level. We have other organizations that have joined at lower levels, and the tiers obviously relate to the industry sector or the size of company. So we have utilities that have a different membership tier. We have small startup companies that are at the lowest membership tier, between $500 and $1,000. So depending on the size of your company or organization, your membership is differential and varies with that. If you are a large company, therefore, you need to make sure that the project that you're submitting to CUTRIC is, of course, worth more than the membership fee you're going to pay into CUTRIC. Otherwise, the return on investment won't make sense to you. And this is why typically what we're seeing with CUTRIC projects are projects in the $1 to $2 to $3 million range. Because a project that is only worth a couple tens of thousands of dollars is probably not going to be worth the membership fee to the private sector company. A project worth a few $100,000 may be worthwhile to a large company if they believe and if they intend for that to just be one of many projects. Ultimately, you only pay one membership fee regardless of how many projects you submit and how many you are successful in winning. Right now, CUTRIC has no limit on whether a company can win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 project proposals in a given time period. So it's certainly in your benefit to become a member and then apply for multiple projects if that works based on your internal strategies for innovation. So therefore, membership applications need to be received by CUTRIC, and I would encourage you to really take a look to determine whether you want to join. If you do want to join, we don't have a standard application form per se. What it involves is actually a letter of support. So your membership is formed of a letter of support that we draft for you based on the capabilities and capacities of your company or your university. And what that is a letter to the board asking for permission to join. All memberships are subject to board approval, and the reason for this is that the reason we don't have automatic approvals of membership is because we need to make sure that companies at the table are actually there to support the growth of this innovation cluster in Canada. What we don't want are companies or organizations at the table who really don't support the growth of this ecosystem, who are not interested in supporting it, who are interested in creating challenges or barriers to the growth. So of course there's a selection process, and that process comes down to the board deciding whether your company or organization has sufficient capability or capacity to benefit the growth of this ecosystem, or whether the feeling is that your company or organization would meritoriously invest in this ecosystem overall. So that letter of support is very important for us to understand what you bring to the organization that makes you valuable to this membership-driven and industry-driven organization around innovation. The second next step is to ensure your project is collaborative. So the financing we have in Ontario right now is for financing of TRL 1 to 6 projects. We also go after financing for higher level TRL projects, so 7 and 8. Those are special case projects where we go through lobby efforts to narrate and discuss the project at the ministry level as well as several bureaucratic levels. But right now, what I'm talking about here is in terms of collaboration, if your project is within the TRL 1 to 6 range, then you need to make sure that collaboration meets the kinds of standards that CUTRIC is looking at. So that means you have at least 2 universities or academic organizations lined up, and there's at least 2 private or public sector corporations. Now, if in your NOI you don't have all of those lined up, that is okay, because our job is to help bring some of those stakeholders to you. Many of you who attended the National Forum will have found collaborators at that forum, and several of the NOIs are now being combined because collaborators both on the academic and private sector side have found each other. So that's quite good. But if you haven't found a collaborator yet and you're still seeking it, then I will be reaching out to you and my team will be reaching out to you to say, what do we need to help you do to make sure that your project is collaborative so that you can go forward to the full financing stage. The academics need to be NSERC or SSHRC eligible. In some cases, CIHR is okay if it's health research, but of course, fitting health research into transit and transportation is a little bit tricky. You might be able to pitch a project where a CIHR eligible institute is playing some type of role in monitoring air quality around alternative propulsion systems. It is possible to conceive, so it's not off the table, it's just a little bit more difficult. In terms of ensuring your project is collaborative at the 7 to 8 range, there are a few projects that are in our pipeline. A few of you will have seen them at the National Forum. We will be following up with you directly. If your project is in the 20 to 30 to 40 to $50 million range, and it is a massive integration or demonstration trial, and it has the potential to be a world first, or at least competitive with world firsts, in any one of the pillar areas that we focus on, then certainly we will be discussing what the next steps are strategically at the federal and provincial level for liberating financing for your project and your community of stakeholders over the next few months. These projects that are at the TRL 7 to 8 level typically involve multiple stakeholders, so half a dozen to a dozen stakeholders, so they're much larger. And if you fall into that domain, then of course please be prepared over the next few weeks to speak with us about those strategic steps at the provincial and federal level. Those projects do require an extraordinary amount of government relations work and work with government to educate bureaucrats, ministry colleagues, as well as academics and private sector colleagues that are brought into the project. So if you are proposing a project at that stage, just be prepared for the fact it takes a lot of elbow grease, but we're certainly up to the task. Now, in terms of PostWarm submissions, these are all to be confirmed and reviewed with our STC later in August once the full nominee list is developed with our membership base. The ideal scenario is that after attending this webinar, you'll receive an invitation to submit a full application once our team has reviewed your NOI with you, once we've gone through a review process whereby I've highlighted to you some of the challenges in your NOI that need to be addressed before I can share the full application with you. Now, let's say we get to a stage where your NOI is as good as it's going to get, and we feel that you've met all the aspects of the program and the initiative that can be met. At that point, you're invited to fill in the full application. The ideal is that we actually have some of those applications invited in the next couple weeks. Now that all depends, again, upon us obtaining our transfer payment agreement. Let's assume that that happens. Then we're looking at opening our submission portal on August 15th. This might be pushed back again simply because we don't receive the financing from the government in time to open it up for August 15th. And ultimately we're going to have to play it by ear, and that's not a major hurdle, but it is a challenge. So for some of you who have projects that need to be launched yesterday because of your internal innovation strategy, you may want to look at alternative financing. Either ASIP, SDTC is a potential one, although their round is not coming up for quite some time. The Ontario Centres of Excellence do have some financing available in short order. Therefore, you may want to look at alternative options. If, however, you can wait and you feel that the best home for your financing is through CUTRIC, given the type of things that we're looking to finance, then certainly this is the kind of timeline that we're looking at, mid-August to late August for the opening up of the submission portal. At that point, your application is then sent forward to STC reviewers. We are asking our STC reviewers to turn around their reviews in 3 weeks. That is the goal, that is the ideal, that is what we are trying to achieve. And so in theory, if our portal Ontario opens up in mid to late August and STC reviewers review your application according to the timeline we're hoping for, then we'll have some project approvals by late September, early October. And that's exciting for us because, of course, we'll be encouraging project stakeholders to apply to NSERC CRDs and other relevant federal programs at the same time. We would like to be able to announce some first-round project financing before the fall. That is the goal we are all working towards. Of course, you'll have to work with us to achieve that goal because nothing's set in stone, but it is the goal that we are working to achieve. Now, in terms of next step, in Quebec, of course, we are working with Innovate to align our interests. So those of you located in Quebec, you'll be hearing from us shortly. And here we're working with the University of Quebec in Trois-Rivières as our lead organization in Quebec on this initiative, determining what the ideal strategy is for Quebec-based members, whether growing Innovate's capacity is the ideal strategy, whether asking for parallel financing is the ideal strategy. And there we are looking to really make the most efficient initiative possible in Quebec, given that there's very good innovation capacity already in the province. In British Columbia, those of you who attended the Industry Academic Innovation Panel with us in British Columbia, thank you very much to you. That was greatly appreciated. The event was very helpful, and ultimately it means now the BC government is working across 5 different ministries to figure out how best to finance CUTRIC projects. And those of you that were involved specifically in the BC initiative and our BC-based projects, you're already involved with us in the next steps, which involves the full proposal to the BC government over the course of August and the fall. And so, of course, we're looking to really gain financing from the BC government, ideally before the end of the year, but the ultimate goal is the 2017 budget. In the meantime, if you have a project that has Ontario-based industry members, but BC-based academic members, we can actually move forward with those projects already. And that's because the CUTRIC financing in Ontario can help to finance Ontario-based industry projects. That holds also for Quebec. So if you have a project that is industry-based in Quebec, or rather industry-based in Ontario, but academic-based in Quebec, we can move forward with those projects now. Now, in terms of the next steps on our end, between July 18th and August 30th, we'll be working through one by one all of the NOIs. And some of you have already been in contact with us. We've already met with you. We've already reviewed your NOIs, and your Office of the Race is revising those NOIs or combining with other project partners out there. Some of you have not yet heard from us, and that's just us working through the 50+ NOIs one by one. So you will hear from us shortly. And in that regard, I will be providing you with feedback directly on your NOI and making some recommendations where relevant about partnering with other organizations to streamline your application and to get to the right collaborative level of academic and industry partnership. And between this July 18th and August 30th, of course, we'll be providing you with guidance about the full financing process. So the application for full financing has been developed. It's into its 3rd iteration now. The full guidelines for eligible, ineligible costs and investments are developed. They will be proposed and reviewed by the Scientific and Technical Committee in August. Once that is ready, they will be shared with those stakeholders who have been invited to apply for full financing. Ultimately, all updates will be posted periodically on our website. So our website is the easiest portal to go to over the course of the next 6 weeks to gain updated information. This webinar will be posted to our website as well so that you can review it with your teams if need be. The PowerPoint is also available as a simple slide deck. We will be using our website as a portal to communicate with you. So look for regular e-blasts or informational outreach emails from us that indicate when certain milestones have been achieved. And the next milestone to be achieved is the confirmation of the transfer payment agreement with the Ontario government. After that, the next milestone to be achieved is the confirmation of the full roster of the Scientific and Technical Committee. After that, the next milestone to be achieved is the opening up of the actual submission portal and the invitation formally to apply through that submission portal. So those are the next 3 milestones you can look for over the next few weeks. In the meantime, I welcome those of you that are quite keen to move forward, Ontario-based projects in particular, to join CUTRIC and to look to sign up as members. That will certainly streamline our process going forward because applications and projects by members of CUTRIC are evidently prioritized. And that is how, of course, an organization like this ensures its own operational and financial sustainability. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it greatly. I know that there's a lot of information here to review, and since the organization is new and we're trying to do something quite new in Ontario and across Canada for that matter, there are a lot of questions that you may have. In terms of general queries, you're welcome to contact my colleague, Garrett Duffy. In terms of project-specific queries, you're welcome to contact myself. And certainly, as I said, you'll be hearing from us if you submitted an NOI in June, if you attended our R&I forum, then you're definitely on my list of communications over the next couple of weeks to make sure that you have all the information you need to decide A, whether you will actually join as a member if you're not one already, B, whether as a member you will seek financing through this current round, and C, whether you feel, given the rules of engagement, that your application actually has a very good chance of winning. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to waste anyone's time, and I'm sure nobody wants to spend the time applying for full financing if there isn't a very high likelihood of success. So I would look forward to those communications, and I look forward to working with all of you going forward. Thank you.